In January of this year, Google co-founder Sergey Brin made his first major political donation. After he wrote a $20 million check to start a new super PAC, more million-dollar checks started flowing in from other Silicon Valley heavyweights.
Nice.
So what was it about this moment that moved Brin to get involved in politics for the first time? Why now?
Mr. Brin, you are worth $245 billion. Start paying your fair share of taxes.
A proposed tax on billionaires living in California is gaining national attention.
I mean, how many yachts do you need? They just keep getting wealthier and wealthier, and us on the bottom are just getting stuck with more debt.
When Sergey Brin wrote that $20 million check, he was responding to an unprecedented political moment.
We will deliver universal child care for the many by taxing the wealthiest few.
At a moment of skyrocketing costs for healthcare, utilities, and groceries, a group of labor unions in California are making a bet with huge stakes.
The 214 or 15 billionaires in California collectively have $2.2 trillion worth of wealth, which is just an unimaginable amount of money. What we've proposed is a one-time 5% tax on their worldwide assets that will produce $100 billion.
So we went to California to find out, is a wealth tax key to solving the state's problems? Or is it the first domino that could take down the fourth largest economy in the world?
You would see a significant reduction in taxes because taxpayers will move.
What can the fight over California's wealth tax tell us about the problems our country faces and how to solve them? Glance, an elementary school outside of Boston might seem like a strange place to go to better understand a wealth tax in California. But once you understand what's going on here, it becomes more clear.
8 years ago, school breakfast was stigmatized. Our breakfast program, we served maybe 2% of students.
But on this day in Watertown, Massachusetts, just outside Boston, every kid gets free breakfast. Same with lunch, and same at every public school across the state.
Here you go, Caitlin. Hi, Francesca. Hi, good, how are you?
That's because back in 2022, the state's voters approved a ballot initiative called the Fair Share Amendment.
The proposal would require people who make over $1 million to pay 4% more in state income tax.
Across the state, 2 free meals a day at school are saving millions of families money on groceries. Better trains and buses and tuition-free community college are lowering their transportation and education bills. All of it.
That's where I'm from. That's my high school. I don't understand. Did every billionaire and millionaire escape Massachusetts then? Like, is that what happened? How are they surviving? How are they surviving with this unjustifiable attack against their wealth? This doesn't make any sense to me. They've basically killed all innovation in the city, right?
Paid for with the millionaire's tax.
Every year when Massachusetts reaffirms that we're having a free breakfast and free lunch, I breathe a sigh of relief.
Everybody in Massachusetts who was a lobbyist and a spokesperson for the wealthy, they said, oh, we're going to see an exodus, a mass exodus of the wealthy.
And these guys are going to say, okay, I'm going to go to Florida instead of staying in Massachusetts.
And it's a very legit concern.
So Massachusetts doesn't want to position itself in a way that our tax code is an impediment to economic growth.
Well, guess what? There was no mass exodus.
In fact, the number of millionaires in Massachusetts actually grew close to 40% in the 2 years after the amendment passed. Now, this same argument is being recycled in California.
It's the California gold rush in reverse.
What the hell? What do you mean it didn't fail? An economist would never lie to me, dude. Are you telling me that economists lie with regular frequency? That's crazy. Are you telling me that people with a vested interest, people whose entire paycheck relies on them just telling the public straight up lies about the dangers of taxing the super rich, we're actually lying once again? What the f? No lessons to be learned from this, though. Certainly, once again, wealth exodus again.
Talking about it is sending billionaires running.
Some are reportedly ready to move their businesses and their money across the country to Florida.
This is an exodus, isn't it? You're not for a wealth tax in the state of California.
You can't isolate yourself from the 49 others. We're in a competitive environment.
Unlike the Massachusetts tax, the California proposal would tax wealth, not income. And it would apply to a much smaller group of people, the 200-odd billionaires in the state. It's also a response to one of the largest wealth transfers in the country's history.
I've been a healthcare worker for 57 years. This is the worst threat that I've ever seen.
When President Trump signed the legislation, the world changed.
Trump's signature on this bill redirected billions of dollars from Medicaid into the pockets of billionaires and corporations. So that money is now sitting in the investment portfolios of billionaires like Mark Zuckerberg and Sergey Brin instead of paying doctors and nurses and care flight pilots. It's not lowering monthly premiums for low-income folks who are dropping out of the pool and making premiums go up for the rest of us.
So I'm a phlebotomist. What brings me here today is it's pretty simple, to prevent a healthcare collapse.
In California, the cuts amount to $100 billion over 5 years.
I look back at what happened at COVID.
This ICU is over capacity.
Mass graves for those who can't afford a funeral.
It would be like seeing something of COVID, but permanent.
The Antelope Valley Medical Center has already had to close its public health clinic in response to this routing of billions from Medicare to billionaires' pockets.
If the ER closes in one town, the next town's ER is going to be overcrowded. Well, it turns out we're all in this together.
So we are in uncharted territory, and that's an unprecedented situation. Nobody has ever had to manage that before.
You can't just manufacture the dollars out of thin air. Ultimately, we are all going to pay. It is higher amounts we spend for doctor's visits, it's higher co-pays, it's higher insurance costs. It comes out of all of our pockets, one way or another.
So there's this crisis, and the question facing California was, what are you going to do about it?
If not asking the richest among us to pay, what do we do?
Well, we do. California has the most progressive tax structure in the United States of America.
But there are billionaires who are sitting on equity who don't sell it
We have
and who are paying a
billionaires
lower tax rate.
that are paying those progressive taxes. We have the highest progressive tax rate in the United States of America.
It is true, California has relatively high personal income taxes. Those are meaningless to billionaires.
The income that you earn at your job or that I earn by going out in public and begging strangers to talk to me.
We're working on a video about the billionaire tax. Do you guys want to talk about it? Do you want to talk about it? You guys want?
This is the thing. I pay as a California resident with my federal and state taxes because of the way that I am a 1099 employee and because none of my assets, like none of my wealth is accumulated capital, none of it is in the stock market, I pay a higher burden, like a higher tax burden than pretty much any other person on the planet that is like super wealthy, right? It's true. In the state of California, if you are at the top marginal tax bracket, you basically at the end of the year are paying like 50+% almost of like your effective tax rate. It's literally more than my French counterparts. They're actually shocked by how much taxes we pay. The reason why they're shocked by how much taxes we pay is twofold. One, because there's this attitude in America where you actually don't pay any taxes at all, or the tax burden is actually low. That's not true. If you're getting taxed on your income, your tax burden is fairly high. It's actually very low if you are super, super wealthy and have all of your wealth in assets. These guys get to never pay anywhere close to what you pay in taxes percentage-wise. Their year-over-year income growth is directly associated with capital accumulation. And their effective tax rate at the end of the year is sometimes 1% or much, much lower than 1%. Because they're making billions and billions of dollars. Like their net worth is growing by the billions in some instances, and none of that is getting taxed. As long as they never cash it out, they don't ever have to get taxed on it. That's the reason why they're trying to implement some kind of wealth tax in the state. And it is controversial, to say the least, because the entire point of keeping your asses in the stock market for many of these super wealthy people is not so that their wealth is more productive and somehow being spent on productive forces, and you get to build more businesses, all this bullshit that people tell you in econ. But the reason why they do it is because they don't have to get taxed on it, and there are alternative means of borrowing against their net worth that basically transfers what would be a much higher tax rate that would go to the state coffers to basically a fee that you're paying to the bank in the form of an incredibly low interest rate. So instead of paying the tax on your capital that you have turned liquid, that you've the stocks that you've sold, you get to pay just a tiny, minuscule percentage of that, not to the state, but to the bank in the form of interest. The bank is obviously happy with this because they have a tremendous amount of assets that they now look at as leverage. So they'll readily give you whatever loan you want with whatever favorable interest rate that you can get that normal people can't get. And it's not enough. This is true. This is a wealth tax, but it's not even a real wealth tax. It's a one-time fee that says 200 billionaires need to give California 5% of their net worth. That's not a real sustainable tax. It's just kind of slop to say we're taxing the rich. Real tax reform is needed, including perhaps a wealth tax. I agree. I think it's a test. California imposes the highest state income tax rate in the U.S. for high earners with a top marginal tax rate of 13.3% on taxable income over $1 million. How does that get to a 50% tax rate? It's a 37% on top marginal tax rate at the federal level. Did you not know that there's a federal tax that Americans pay as well? The point is that for people at the top of the tax bracket, if they're like, there are not that many people that are at the top of the tax bracket that are just like operating on pure income. And that is because the system is designed to feed all of that back into the stock market. So most people don't do that. So the people that end up paying the highest tax rates or the highest effective tax rate at the end of the year are usually doctors and athletes and people like that. It's never the tech billionaires or the CEOs, because all of their year-over-year revenue gain directly comes from their stock prices going up, their assets increasing, capital accumulation, their assets increasing in value. And that's why people say at the end of the year, when you look at a billionaire and like their effective tax rate, it's like less than 1%, as opposed to you, the average person, you're paying, 30, 40% of your entire income. The only money that you have, the only money that goes into your pocket, the government takes it. Now, of course, that still needs to happen, obviously, because there's a lot more people that are just working off of pure income than people who are engaging in capital accumulation, at least in a meaningful manner. Tom Steyer made a good point on this, but I understand why people didn't want to listen to him. There's so many better ways to tax the rich, like undoing Proposition 13 would be amazing. This just feels like a part of the broader trend among liberals and even the left doing the tax slopism, where they say normal people don't have to pay any taxes and the billionaires pay it all. That's impossible. Yeah, I mean, that is impossible. Having said that, even a one-off I'm in favor of. And if they don't do it, we should slap an exit tax. I'm in favor of taking money out of the hands of billionaires and redistributing it back to the people, no matter which way you do it. Okay? 100%. Because the level of wealth accumulation, especially at that level, is so unbelievable that the system is so broken that when someone turns around and says, oh, well, this is not the perfect method, I'm like, I know it's a one-off. It should still happen. There's enough out there. There's enough wealth out there that it should unironically happen, even if it's not the best system, even if it's not the most reliable way of generating revenue for the state. That's how I feel about it. Because the money that we're talking about it's not normal. It's not something that you can even imagine with your human brain. You can't comprehend it just by looking at numbers. Like, it doesn't tell the full story. The wealth gap is so vast at that level that even an unreliable and inconsistent one-off method is still good. Like, for all his W's, Van Hollen's proposal, I know you're talking about something different. You're talking about how like a lot of liberal and left-leaning Democrats are trying to only tax the rich, or they're not. They're even talking about like doing tax cuts for people making less than $100,000. I was like, it's ridiculous. It is sloppy list. You're right. I do understand that, there are far more people making $100,000 that will be reliably generating revenue for the government than the millionaires and the billionaires. But what I'm saying is there's an unbelievable amount of wealth in the hands of a tiny sliver of the population, and even a one-off is still fine.
Talk about it?
No, not really.
Okay. Hey guys.
We can see how much of it comes out every paycheck in the form of state income taxes. We can also definitely see the impact of taxes on gas and other necessities.
I might move to out of state because we have to pay taxes for everything. Gas on it is tax. Everything.
I'm hearing you say it's that the tax burden right now is falling on working people too much.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what they're doing to us.
But billionaires like Mark Zuckerberg, they get paid differently. He famously takes a $1 annual salary from Facebook, but he mostly gets paid in the form of shares of his company's stock. And if he never sells those shares, he never has to pay taxes on them. Same with most other billionaires in California.
Missouri's trying to get rid of income tax completely and replace it with sales tax. I had to explain to my coworkers how that actually moves even more of the burden to the low-income families. Oh my God. Americans are going to unironically do away with all progressive taxation. This is still Ronald Reagan, the devil, and his impact being felt on American consciousness decades after his death. Starving the beast was the most effective mechanism to make Americans resentful of any kind of government activity and make them infinitely more excited at the prospect of tax cuts, even if it makes no damn sense whatsoever. And it's a never-ending death spiral. The more money you do not take out of the hands of the super wealthy, especially, the more money in circulation, the less the government spends on utilities, on improving people's material conditions, the more annoyed people are, the more they ask the question, why am I even paying taxes at all? Because going back to my story with my French friends that I was talking to, one of the reasons why they were shocked with like my, the amount of taxes I'm paying was because it was much higher than they thought it would be, because they think Americans pay very low taxes, and it's usually just the super wealthy that pay relatively low percentage in their taxes. But the other reason was because they looked around and they were like, what do you get for it? What do you get in exchange for these taxes that you're paying? You get nothing. You don't got health care. Your roads are dog shit. There's homelessness everywhere. You don't even get anything for the taxes that you are paying. And that's why they were shocked. That's also part of the reason why a lot of Americans, a lot of working class Americans, are easily duped into believing that tax cuts for the super wealthy will also end up alleviating some of their financial pressure as well, when it unironically makes things worse. Wrong, Israel gets healthcare on my dollars. It's true. That's true. What are you, anti-Semitic? Better not be hearing any sort of anti-Semitism in the chat about how unpatriotic you feel paying taxes when it's only going to Israel. You should feel patriotic towards the nation state of Israel, the true motherland, the only state that matters.
California. Despite holding nearly $2 trillion in wealth, the state's billionaires only contribute about 2.5% of the state's income tax base. The vast majority of their wealth is sitting in their investment portfolios untaxed. California could raise the top income tax rate to 95% and never touch that money. That is the point of a wealth tax. In California, it would be a one-time 5% tax on an individual's net worth if it's over $1 billion. And it can be helpful to deal in physical objects here, since these fortunes are so huge. This is a super yacht. One of these costs about $500 million. If Mark Zuckerberg were to convert his entire fortune into super yachts, he would have 444.6 of them. If the wealth tax passes, Zuckerberg would be left with a measly 422 super yachts. In the 4 odd months it took for me to research, report, travel, and produce this video, Mark Zuckerberg's wealth just sitting in its investment portfolio has already grown by the amount he would be asked to pay.
5% if they're billionaires. When their wealth is growing 7% a year is almost a rounding error.
But many of these billionaires are still spending millions to try to defeat this tax and already taking steps to try to get out of it.
Businesses are fleeing California.
And it's going to cause a mass exodus. This wealth tax is having a huge impact on people fleeing to Florida.
It's a badly drafted effort.
Yeah, except if they flee to Florida, they're going to be stuck in Florida. So good luck living in Florida. Let me tell you, as someone who's lived there, it ain't no California, baby. We got a lot of problems in this beautiful state, but it is one of the most beautiful states I've ever been in, okay? Many of those problems would unironically be solved by, trying to get the super wealthy here in the state to pay a larger share of their yearly revenue gains, yearly increases in their net worth. So, as a future multimillionaire, I'm sick of all these handouts. Just work for your money. I'm unemployed, but spitballing huge app ideas with ChatGPT. Hell yeah. Wantrepreneurs.
It's already had an outsized impact on this state.
Okay, to be clear, we're talking about 6 people. 6 billionaires who have told reporters that they either purchased real estate or incorporated LLCs outside of California. Plus, the proposal covers any billionaire who was a resident of California as of January 1st this year. So if they haven't taken steps already, it's too late. Recent polling shows that a majority of Californians favor the tax, but also that they're concerned that they will have to fit the bill if the billionaires flee. And the measure's opponents are spending millions to try to push this scare tactic to the public. It's an argument that sounds pretty similar to that of the governor, Gavin Newsom. And there might be a reason for that. Former Google CEO Eric Schmidt, Tony Zhu, CEO of DoorDash, Patrick Collison, CEO of Stripe. These billionaires have all contributed the maximum amount to Gavin Newsom's campaigns in previous cycles, as have other California billionaires like Reed Hastings, co-founder of Netflix, who also incidentally cut a $250,000 check to stop Zohran Mamdani from becoming mayor of New York. Taxing the ultra-rich was a huge part of Mamdani's campaign, and California billionaires took notice and started spending to try to stop it. Now, those same billionaires are counting on their years-long investment in Gavin Newsom. And it looks like it's paying off.
What would a compromise look like to you?
I don't know what there is to compromise.
Altogether, Newsom has received financial support from 50 of the state's billionaires and their spouses. And in a state with roughly 200 billionaires, that's not a drop in the bucket. As Newsom positions himself as a 2028 presidential contender, those same billionaires are now funding that effort through a couple of newly formed federal PACs. A sizable portion of Newsom's billionaire backers come from the tech sector, which is an important part of California's economy.
Your home is beautiful.
Thank you.
Do you think that you guys would also too leave California if the billionaire tax passed?
I think that is our big fear. It's sort of the nightmare. We're kind of going through the phases of denial, acceptance, grief, however you call it.
These guys are
Nightmare, dude. Nightmare scenario. The fear that I have in my soul. It keeps me up at night, dude. I'm gonna be worth $17 billion instead of $17.5 billion. Okay? Or however the math works. I'm not a math wizard, okay?
Betting that doom.
What will I do with the remaining $20 billion I have when the government steals from me? What will I do? I will be reduced to a 20 billionaire. You just want to kill my children. That's what you want. This isn't a joke, man. You want to destroy my livelihood. Yeah, meanwhile, this is the Republican attitude, okay? Representative Jeff Van Drew, Republican for New Jersey, on America struggling with rising prices. Let's see what he had to say.
This goes on and on of all the things. Our gas tax automatically increases in New Jersey. And by the way, so do our tolls and our fees automatically increase. All of that. Now we're going to have on top of that, and I'm talking to my folks in New Jersey, my state, you better just keep breaking your back and working hard, maybe get yet another job. The list.
Incredible. Thank you, sir.
Gloom projections about billionaire founders being forced to sell their super voting shares and potentially losing control of their companies will be enough to scare voters into rejecting the proposal.
It shouldn't be too difficult if on paper you're worth several $1 billion to come up with your tax payment without, selling shares or doing some dramatic thing.
There's even a special provision for startups that would allow their founders to delay paying the tax until after their company goes public.
We're trying to make it as easy and reasonable as possible. We're not trying to cause a liquidity problem for these billionaires. We're not trying to cause them to sell shares when they don't want to. We're just trying to use reasonable modern tools in order to close a gap.
Human rights!
And sure, billionaire-backed PACs are already spending big to try to defeat this proposal.
Yeah, billionaire rights are human rights. That's a pro-billionaire rally? Incredible. Oh my God, people are...
But the billionaire class solidarity...
Property rights are human rights. Even Sweden abolished wealth taxes.
...might not be as strong as you'd think. This is an interview with Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA and one of the California billionaires who would be subject to the wealth tax.
Is it something that's of concern to you?
I gotta tell you, I haven't thought about it even once. We work in Silicon Valley because that's where the talent pool is. And
yeah, by the way, any billionaire that says that immediately becomes legendary. That's the other side of this. For 5% of your wealth for 1 year, you automatically become one of the best people of all time. It's a modest price to pay, I think. My friend went to that protest. It was satire. Some of those people were like my Twitter haters, so I don't know how satirical it was. I think some people were genuinely there. You know what I mean?
Whatever taxes, I guess, they would like to apply, so be it. I'm perfectly fine with it. It never crossed my mind once.
For Wong, a one-time 5% tax is a small price to pay to live in a region where his business can recruit the most highly skilled workers. It's a perspective that mirrors that of the working Californians who I spoke with.
Billionaires are making their money off the backs of our public infrastructure. And so we need to make sure that they are paying their fair share for the resources that they are using.
They are making a lot of revenue on workers and working families in the state. And if they cannot help with the 5% to help the...
There was a member of the Ayala Girl Polycule, so we can only be so serious. Wait, aren't those guys sincere? Aren't they like literally just paid? Isn't she like a low-level Jeffrey Epstein type, basically, for billionaires and like Silicon Valley freaks? I mean, I shouldn't be talking too much shit. I'm literally right here at the belly of the beast, right? What is this? Why'd you have... Oh, yeah, they had pro-Jeffrey Epstein signs. Why did you guys have pro-Jeffrey Epstein signs? Also, is that Ayala girl looks like it? Also explains it. Oh, it's Jeffrey Bezos. We love you, Jeffrey Bezos. It wasn't Jeffrey Epstein. It's still kind of weird. That's still odd. You know what I mean?